You notice how every time I start one of these lists, I always say something along the lines of, this was one of the best years of gaming of my life? Well, it's always true, albeit sometimes more than others. For the sake of being different, I won't say it this year. In fact, 2021 was one of the worst years of gaming of my life. I played like one 6 out of 10 game, and it's number 1. I just made top 10 because I was duty bound. This is actually a rage list. You should expect to hear rants in every entry. What's that? I'm lying? Now where would you get an idea like that? In all seriousness, I don't have to make these lists, nor will I if I don't have games I want to talk about that I played that year. 2016 was a very unique year, worthy of a video back then. 2018 was the best year of gaming in my life. 2019 had a lot of interesting cases and featured a ton of games I held strong opinions on and wished got more love. 2020 had Among Us, and 2021 is like a melting pot of all of the above in the very best way. It seriously might contend with 2018 for best year of gaming. Every single entry on this list is a heavy hitter, one of the very best games ever made in its genre, if not just straight up the best in its genre. For reference, I played Child of Light this year, and it's now one of my very favorite traditional JRPGs, which has always been and likely always will be my favorite video game genre. But even it didn't cut the mustard for the top 10. I'm not phoning it in. This year, putting this list together and cutting out games was brutal. But hey, you've seen the length of this video. We have an awful lot to talk about, and I've already wasted enough of your time. Prepare to lose a lot more of it though. We have places to go and things to see. Okay, we're starting out with a big one. I've long considered this one game the single most overrated video game of all time. The entire fanbase worships this game right down to writing off inexcusably bad game design, glitches, exploits, and incorrect hitboxes as being fun extras that can make the game more charming. And all other video games, especially all others in the same franchise, need to be beaten, bloodied, trod on, buried 10 feet underground, and have their grave defiled every day of the week for even sharing the same universe as this god of a game. For years, I have specifically, intentionally avoided this game because of this, because of the rabid, out-of-control fanbase that would murder me if I ever suggested it wasn't the best game ever made. And at this point, I think most of you know what game I'm talking about. I began with this intro, and this confession, for one simple reason. So you can understand what it means when I say that this is a really, really good game. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is not a perfect video game. I actually wrote around 6 paragraphs of some of the more major problems to prove that point, but nobody has time for that in this video, and I refuse to spend this entire entry complaining about a game this amazing. To start with, I know people claim Wind Waker as the best aging graphics on the GameCube, yet they're lying. This game takes that trophy without much work. I love how much extra stuff there is to do in this game. You can gamble away at a casino, buy lottery tickets, take on the series' first and best pit of 100 trials, check in with Luigi and his adventures, do side quests from the city's help board, and every new ability and partner opens up more and more options. I got lost in this game so much exploring the whole world I'd already explored every single time I got a new party member, just to see if I could find new badges or secret areas. And the surprising part is how often that actually paid off. And I never minded revisiting these places because of how charming, wonderfully designed, and downright fun every location is. Between the Gladiator Arena / Sports Festival, the giant tree turned into a maze, and a long train ride where you get to solve a murder mystery, it's also brilliant. Except Chapter 6. That's the mystery land of T2ID. We play it once, then we never return or speak of it as long as we live, and our lives are better for it. Good bosses do not save you from this bad of level structure. The characters have arcs, but more so, they have so much personality. I found myself switching between party members in battle all the time, not based on their effectiveness, but based on who I thought would be most ready to fight this particular enemy at this particular point in the story. Goombell is hilarious, Koops has something that actually resembles growth, Yoshi Kid, I named mine this so that we could have another unsolicited cameo from Ben, is so overconfident, and I love it. Bobby's about to die with every step he takes, Vivian is the best character in the game, and Flurry is there. Wait, I lied. Flavio is the best character in the game. I haven't even touched on the battle system. The expanded partner abilities and power to switch to the front character by itself adds 10 times the depth to battles that Paper Mario 64 had. But things like new badges along with 99 BP to play with, the Crystal Star's powers, stylish moves, and most importantly, the jaw-droppingly good implementation of the audience feature in every battle being a stage allows for so much unique interactions with foes, and it makes for one of the very best battle systems of any RPG I have ever played. Is it the best game of all time? No. Is it the best Paper Mario game of all time? No, Super Paper Mario still beats it in both gameplay and story. Is it a perfect 10 out of 10 game? No. But is it one of my favorite games and one of my favorite franchises? One of the best games in my favorite genre? Without a doubt. Almost worth starting a cult over. You know, almost. I have played very few horror games in my life, hated most of them, and been terrified by all of them. But outside of a certain Wonderland custom level, none have ever terrified me to such a degree as the Resident Evil 2 remake. There are only so many times your heart can stop working in your life before death, at least I assume, and Resi 2 took at least 14 away from that counter. But it's also the first time I've been so insanely invested into a game that I managed to push through despite the scares, and I can't believe that's a real thing that happened to me. The game plays so darn well with your expectations. You're just in one building, later expanding in other areas, but still not nearly as large and open as you would expect from a zombie killing game. But every corner, every room, every intersection where you choose where you have to go feels weighty. I shouldn't even suggest that it's a zombie killing game, because right from the prologue it's made explicitly clear that it isn't. It takes all of your bullets to put one zombie down temporarily. There are dozens more wandering around. They're not exactly smart, but between great lighting and incredible sound design, everyone feels thoroughly intimidating. Even if you can dispatch it easily, you would still never want to be in a room alone with a zombie. The constant progression through expanded areas and barely hidden side quests to upgrade your weapons and get more stuff gives off a lot of Link to the Past vibes to me, which is a long way of saying the Metroidvania gameplay itself is exciting and well developed, and capable of retaining your interest even if the horror elements weren't there. The game will never let you forget about those horror elements. Every single time you begin to get comfortable with the current situation, the game knows how to throw you off guard. If you're used to the layout of the main floor of the police station, great! Every quest now requires you to visit varying rooms on the second and third floors. You finally got a weapon that can kill regular zombies in one shot? Well, here are some new, infinitely more terrifying foes that are tougher and respond to sound, meaning that using that new, very loud weapon has a give and take and risk to it. Get used to those things and learn how to deal with new and unfamiliar environments quickly, and well, now you're back where you started with 10 more missions and a new threat that hunts you down and makes sure you are stressed about every single plan you make. It's a horror game, it's a puzzle game, it's a strategy game, it's a Metroidvania, it's everything I never knew I wanted. Plus, it even has a decent story, assuming you're playing as Claire anyway. Doesn't mean I'll be picking up too many more horror games in the future, but now that the barrier's been broken, who knows what'll happen. A semi-aggressive homeowner doesn't seem quite so terrifying anymore. This year, I played the Pheonix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy. Why? Not every entry has to have a paragraph-long intro. You already heard the music, you knew this entry had to be a Pheonix Wright game. The biggest question had to be which one. Well, all three games are basically just a collection of the cases with the same formulas. The gameplay style is the only distinction that separates them from each other's individual case quality, and that says to me that there's nothing wrong with shoving all of them into one entry. Don't like that? Too bad, I make the rules. When a Pheonix Wright game is good, there's very little else like it, which means there's very little else separating them, at least the three I played this year. Many claim the Ace Attorney games to be visual novels, but although they borrow the gameplay style of visual novels, they're definitively puzzle games. You're given a selection of information and have to figure out how to use it to gain more, and then how to use all of that to prove your case in court. Every cross-examination is a puzzle you have to break down, find conflict in, and exploit. And the information gathering session serves so well to build up intrigue and provide clues to the answer of these very complicated mysteries, with elements like Cyclops still firmly rooting it in puzzle game territory. Puzzle is my second favorite video game genre, by the way. You have no idea how close Babel was to being on this list, despite basically being a Sudoku book. Ace Attorney is very much a love it or hate it series, with some finding it engaging and wonderful, and others quite boring and full of surprise plot twists for no reason. I think the distinction often comes down to how much you like murder mysteries. Well, I adore them, so I really love these games. The way the mystery is presented, how you have to find each individual clue and work things out for yourself. Things others saw as random plot twists, I saw as a possibility to be explored or eliminated. But not because I'm a smart guy, but because I've been drenched in these sort of murder mystery shows and novels since I was 6. I never had to present evidence as random guesswork. I was able to reach every conclusion at nearly the same time the game expected me to, which made the whole experience so much better. And of course, the humor, style of characters, and sharp writing kept me charged charging ahead at every point. Special mention to Rise from the Ashes. I don't care what the internet says, this is the best case of the trilogy, and by a notable distance. Fun fact, I used to want to be a lawyer and even did a semester of law some years ago, upon which I discovered I actually didn't want to be a lawyer. That had no influence on these games because they're murder mystery puzzle games, not representations of the legal system. Let me tell you, thank the great Pokemon in the sky for that. Alright, let me set the scene. Me and Evilgrapez, say hi Evilgrapez, are at Obi-Wan Kenobi's house, ready to play some more Destiny. But Terror and Trials, the game needs to update for like a whole hour. What are we ever gonna do? Well, play some random games until then, of course. We decided to fool around with some games none of us had tried yet until the hour was up. But then we put in the first game we randomly grabbed, and it was a long time before we remembered that Destiny was ever on the table that day. That game sucked us in and made us fight over the only two controllers like school children. It looked, sounded, and played amazing, and we were shocked when we later looked it up and found a lot of unfavorable reviews. I'm going a little against the grain on this one, but I have to say, Sackboy: A Big Adventure is one of the best platformers I have ever played. The easiest and best way to describe Sackboy is that it is everything Super Mario 3D World wanted to be. I do love 3D World, but if Sackboy had a Mario coat of paint on it, there would seriously be people arguing for it to be the best game in the Mario franchise. The controls, gameplay style, and level design is very 3D World-esque, but where it far surpasses the former is A, the multiplayer is incredibly well integrated, with a drop-in drop-out flower respawn system that balances everything perfectly without requiring an infinite lives glitch to be fun. Unique sections to reward multiplayer experiences in a world that's designed to be fully explorable and even enhanced by 4 players while still being a fully functioning, perfectly balanced single-player game. B, the green stars of this game aren't gained by extremely arbitrary and frustrating platforming challenges, but instead hidden areas and puzzles that make these mandatory collectibles actually feel rewarding and optional levels actually feel optional, rather than 3D World's retry 10 times and collect everything or die approach. C, coins actually mean something as they unlock costumes and secrets, and that alone is so much more reason to spend as long as you could ever want at any level picking up every possible collectible. And D, you get to take a photo at the end of every level and photobomb others. It's like that amazing Mario Party 10 minigame, but it's every level and it never gets old. There are a bunch of other things too, like music levels, unique mechanics, and boss battles, but all fall short of the camera minigame. But when reviewing the game, the only thing people tend to talk about is lack of a custom level feature, which is maybe in the top 5 worst reasons I've ever heard to dislike a game. That's like hating Smash Ultimate because you can't code in custom items. It was never intended to be part of the experience. Why were you expecting it? I guess Mario bias really is a thing, huh? Speaking of which... Mario Party! They got all the best stuff from those old ones, so I get to play on Wonderland without having to run into— what roll call? Why is that here? Eat that, you fool. I'm the best player that's ever played to play. How can you hope to compete with a minigame master? That was my major in college, the best 10 years of my life. What? How could you, Yoshi? We were supposed to work together. Fine. You have sealed your fate. Die! 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 Never mind! I'm losing! I'm willing to declare a truce. What? No. Lucky you! Truce over! Time to die! Fear the power of the triple deck duper dice sandwich! It's dangerous and delicious! That's right, go to Bowser, spread some communism. Haha, you fool! While you were busy infiltrating our nation under the guise of a class action lawsuit, I was busy infiltrating your first place position! That's right, peons! I got another star! If you add that to my skill level and the stars I've already gotten, the math works out to be about 1 lucky you sticker, which is of course infinite power, which means I win infinite games over an infinite period of time, making you an infinite loser! Go share a set with Raditz. I see it! Victory's in hand! Give it to me! Give it to me, Toad! The victory sandwich I deserve! This is the worst game I've ever played. Note, this entry is Deltarune, a free game that's best played knowing as little about it as possible going in. It's not as essential to not know much about this game as it is for, say, Undertale, but you will miss out on some stuff by even watching basic gameplay footage before playing this game yourself. Again, it's free, short, sweet, there's literally no reason not to skip this entry for now, and play it yourself. Alright, you've been warned. It took me a long time to decide if Deltarune should be allowed on this list, despite only being, at absolute most, 2/7 complete. I would never put a demo of a game on this list after all, but there were almost 3 years between the releases of chapters 1 and 2, and since 3 to 5 will be bundled, I might be dead before they come out. Plus, last year everyone put the Final Fantasy VII Remake on their end-of-year list, even though it was explicitly marketed as 1/3 of a full game, so the length of Chapter 2 alone is already better than other similar complete games. Yeah, screw it, it's on here. Deltarune has so much personality. Despite having one of the best and most interesting combat systems of any traditional RPG and a pretty good story with wonderful characters, the game's personality is what completely and totally dominates it. If you combined the total amount of times I laughed this year outside of playing Deltarune and compared it to the total amount of times I laughed while playing Deltarune, they'd be pretty comparable. Charm isn't really the right word for it. The game knows what it's doing to you at every point and exploits that. But unlike, say, Everhood, which exploits that in order to shove 8th grade philosophy down your throat and make you feel like you should stop playing, Deltarune uses it to enhance your experience with the game at every turn. It only ever grows more charming, more intriguing, and more investing. I want to see Susie and Lancer become friends. I want to watch Birdley make a fool out of himself and the main villain feel too awkward to tell him what he's doing wrong. I want to recruit this weird guy to my town. I want to put these key parts back together. I want to become friends with people while still wondering what the heck's going on with my secret soulless alter ego. The game constantly makes you want more in a great way, all because of its personality. And again, that's one part of this game. The combat, oh, it's so good. I loved how Undertale mixed shoot-'em-up gameplay style with the traditional RPG combat, but Deltarune does the same to such a degree that even can make Undertale feel ashamed. The amount of games that could ever do that to any part of Undertale numbers like 3. At absolute most. In fact, I don't hesitate to say that if every future chapter is around the same level of quality as Chapter 2, this game will 100% surpass Undertale in quality. That is a terrifying thought. You know, in the best of ways. So, last year, I noted that 2020 didn't have a major indie release everyone frothed over. That was because apparently I just totally forgotten Hades was ever a thing that happened. That game definitely qualifies to be in the same league as, say, Celeste and Cuphead as major indie games every person on the internet screamed need to be played. But hey, I figured at least this would keep the tradition I had going live. You know, where I play and place on the list all the indie releases exactly 1 year after they came out. Cuphead comes out in 2017, celebrating 2018. Celeste 2018, celebrated 2019. You know, Hades was just slot right in. But I played Hades and it was amazing, one of the best roguelikes I've ever played. But somehow, some way, it didn't make the cut. The 1000-Year Door was just too good of a game to smash through. Then I royally screwed up the tradition by playing 2021's giant celebrated indie game Everhood in 2021, and it also didn't make the cut. So yeah. But on the bright side, holy crap is a Hat in Time everything everyone said it would be. Now that I think about it, those things aren't related. Whatever. Okay, it's not perfect. There are some glitches, weird physics interactions, the occasional game-breaking bug, and moments where the game just crashes for no reason. Yeah. The fact that despite those major flaws, this game is ranked higher than the 1000-Year Door, Resi 2, and freaking Deltarune should scream libraries. It does mostly come down to a bit of nostalgia and my own personal preferences. If I had owned this game on the GameCube back during my 8-year-old days, there's a fair shot it would still be in my top 10 favorite games of all time. For one simple reason. Everything that Sackboy was to Super Mario 3D World, A Hat in Time is to Super Mario Sunshine. It's every bit as fun a physics engine to interact with. Its secret levels are significantly better designed. The soundtrack is actually better than Sunshine's What the Heck, and the characters have actual personalities. The final level is a great skill testing challenge that features no boats. The final boss is a worthy final fight, and oh, thank the great Pokemon in the sky, optional shine sprites actually matter and can be gotten in place of story-driven ones. Then there's the world design. Holy bejeez, I love the flavor, style, and charm of every freaking world in Sunshine, but the very best Sunshine has to offer can't compare to even just the opening level of A Hat in Time. I spent countless hours fooling around in Mafia Town before even triggering the cutscene where I pick up a weapon, and all the missions are unique and uniquely fun. The biggest problem with the game is actually length. At only 40 shine sprites, well, timepieces, but you know, Sunshine sprite. It's a far shorter game than its competition, which is alleviated significantly through the DLC. That adds a bajillion extra things to do, tons of new costumes, which if you know me, are the single best thing any game can ever have, and 2 whole new worlds. And while I love the Sunshine-like charm and connectedness of the Arctic cruise, Nyakuza Metro is actually comparable to Super Mario Galaxy in how well designed it is. I am serious. And that is mind-blowing. Oh yeah, it also has multiplayer. I probably shouldn't have just tossed that in at the end because it makes the entire game twice as fun and is shockingly well integrated, but yeah, it has that. The game has the most major flaws of any game on this list, but every time I pick up my Switch, despite having nearly 100% of the entire game, my first thought is always, maybe I should play A Hat in Time today. That's the sign of a really incredible game. I played every Kingdom Hearts game this year. Yeah, I had no idea what I was getting into. 13 games, some small demos, multiple YouTube mobile game cutscene compilations, and I kid you not, just 1 month later, my head was drowning in Kingdom Hearts. I played, slept, ate, and breathed Kingdom Hearts. I was Kingdom Hearts. All this going on right in the middle of college finals, by the way. I had a lot more in store for my ethics professor than I think he was ready for. At some point, I want to do a video discussing my thoughts on this franchise in more detail, but I have to say, despite no individual game ever reaching the sort of heights and quality you'd expect from such a famous franchise, as a whole, the franchise leaves an impression that will last the rest of your life. Don't be afraid to dive in, so long as you have some sort of play/watch order guide. It's more than worth it, and the storyline is not hard to follow. At least it's not if you've ever watched a movie with time travel or read a fantasy book with a magic system. If so, you're more than fine. People overplay the complicatedness of the story because a lot of folks accidentally play the series out of order, but as someone whose knowledge of the franchise was limited to the main guy looks like Mickey Mouse turned into a human, I picked up on everything fine, so you should be okay. Picking one game out of the lot to put on the list is somewhat difficult because I want to talk about all of them, but also easy, because I was lying when I said no individual game reached the quality you'd expect from the series. One did, and surpassed them. And I'm going to be crucified for telling the truth, but gosh darn it, Kingdom Hearts 3 really is the best Kingdom Hearts game. It's not really a contest. From my perspective, someone who experienced the whole series exclusively through the games and mobile cutscenes, in what was more or less release order, with KH3 being the very final thing in the franchise that I played, you know, on Lollipop Melody memories like a day later. They took me for a spin and blew me away in a manner I've very rarely seen. The entire opening act is one of the most blood-pumping, smile-inducing, wonder-spreading first levels I've ever seen in a video game. Hack and slashes like Kingdom Hearts, which yes is a hack and slash, the only people who think they're action RPGs are people who have never played an actual succeed or fail based on their combat. And KH3 not just has the best combat system of the series, but one of the best I've ever seen from the genre. The basic Keyblade attacks mix perfectly with the different magic spells and levels to those spells to make sure that even against a group of clone enemies, no battle feels alike. You get to make your own combos, and it's fluid enough where it's practically begging you to do so. The simple Keyblade strike and magic system creates a very intricate combat system without even taking into account things like different Keyblade forms, transformations, summons, super attacks, enemy types, or area-specific combat changes, like hopping in a giant mech suit. Kingdom Hearts is famous for mixing traditional hack-slash gameplay and platforming, with varying results. KH3, however, does it the best, with not only environmental takedowns, but a free-flowing movement system that makes traversing the world, climbing mountains, exploring cities, and jumping off walls to attack enemies so naturally fun, you forget it's usually something all other games in the genre would avoid like the plague. The boss fights are so wonderfully creative, and the 3-hour-long final boss sounds horrible on paper, but in experience becomes one of the single greatest gaming experiences I've ever had. And yes, the Disney worlds recycle their plots from the movies. How is that different to literally any other Kingdom Hearts game? The original plot going on is the best pace in the franchise except maybe KH1's, and tells its own tale that's fascinating enough to make up for it. Yeah, it doesn't have a ton of optional content until the DLC super bosses show up, but I'm not going around saying Smash Ultimate's an awful game because Luft didn't make the cut for the roster. Even without DLC, it is the longest entry in the series, has the hardest hard mode, and is the most fun to replay. Everything that is there is wonderful. KH3 feels like the embodiment of my final feelings on the franchise. Flawed in some ways, but so free, flowing, fun, and intricate and complicated I can look past the few small cracks to experience something truly worth having. It's been a long time since I played a game that made me wish I could experience it for the first time all over again. I'm honored such a thing happened this year. Then it happened again with Remember how how puzzle is my second favorite video game genre? Well, oh jeez, this is gonna be hard for me to admit. Zack and Wiki is one of the most creative and brilliant games I've ever seen. These Attorney games involve me in one of my favorite story types and do it amazingly well. I've never seen a game let you get as creative in solving puzzles as Scribblenauts Unlimited. I've never seen a game have so much fun with puzzles as Battle Block Theater. Little Inferno changed my outlook on life. But Portal 2 is the best puzzle game I've ever played. Oh wait, I forgot the Wonderland games were a thing. Well, it's in contention. I have owned both Portal games for years now, but never bothered playing them, partially because I didn't have hardware capable of handling them very well, and partially because they just didn't interest me that much. Portal 1 was everywhere on the internet for most of my life, so I saw the super empty test chambers, lack of music, and simplistic puzzles, and realized pretty quickly I'd gotten everything I ever needed from it by hearing the credits on. 2016 re-emphasized this through my playthrough of the 2D Metro games, revealing to me that even in a very well-designed game, I was not a fan of isolation as a major draw. Playing Portal 1 this year, I was both correct and incorrect to varying degrees. You're not as isolated as I thought you were, but empty chambers, lack of continually building mechanics, and occasional how are you even supposed to solve this except through trial and error made it more or less just a decent puzzle game with a very unique main hook. I didn't expect much more from Portal 2. In my mind, the two were always paired together. Nobody ever talked about Portal 1 without bringing up Portal 2, and vice versa. In my head, there were like the FNAF games, coming out within months of each other with minor gameplay variants, but it was mostly just made to froth at since the first game got so memed on in what was a positive way. Then the manual override happened. My jaw dropped, and I've been swooning over this game ever since. To put it simply, Portal 2 is to Portal 1 as Super Mario Bros. 3 is to the original Super Mario Bros. Yes, they have similar mechanics, some similar level designs, same characters, situations, and even physics engines, but they're incomparable. One is leagues better than the other. Portal feels like a college indie project to impress a professor. Portal 2 feels like a AAA game with millions of dollars poured into it and a giant staff that adored their work. Obviously, it's better in terms of graphics, soundtrack, and narrative, sound effects, voice acting, all sorts of polish. Not just better, incomparably, like Super Mario Odyssey is to Super Mario 64. But that's not the main focus here. As a puzzle game, this is one of the most creative, most inspired, most fun-allowing, and most fun-having games ever put on a AAA anything. The confined test chambers at the beginning are so superior to those of Portal 1's and include something the game definitely needed: continual buildup of new mechanics and ways to utilize them with combined with previous mechanics for new puzzles. The light bridge and various goos in particular are so creative and add so much depth in every puzzle they're in. Chambers can and do have multiple solutions, but you always feel so good when you figure one out, or some sort of portal and physics manipulation used to your advantage. And the final section combines everything you've seen before to really make it feel like you earned your spot in these final levels. And the game mixes in extra things like escape sequences to give you more to experience. Plus, the game has tons of personality. It really is one of the funniest games I've played.
Those of you who volunteered to be injected with praying mantis DNA, I've got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news is we've got a much better test for you. Fighting an army of mantis men. Pick up a rifle and follow the yellow line. You'll know when the test starts.
And unlike Portal 1, you, the player, are not doing these puzzles for no reason. You're doing them so you get to interact more with characters and move forward in the story. And the game knows exactly how to play with your expectations at every turn. Also, Wheatley might just be my favorite thing, just in existence. You gotta give credit to Evilgrapez for this one. If he hadn't gushed about both of these games to me, it might have been years before I played Portal 2. Probably deserves a pay raise. But he won't get one. This game taught me a lot of things. In early 2016, I made a bold claim, and I made it loud in the title of a video. I claimed that Rayman Origins was my favorite game of all time. That claim lasted approximately 7 months when I ranked Xenoblade Chronicles above Rayman Origins in my top 10 Wii games. In early 2019, I claimed Xenoblade Chronicles was currently my favorite game of all time, with Xenoblade 2 making a strong case to take that spot. Today, the spot of my favorite game is a highly contentious one. There are, no joke, 12 games all currently fighting for that spot, with 5 major standouts. But I certainly can't say as confidently as I did in March of 2016 that Rayman Origins is my favorite game. But the simple fact that it's one of the contenders made my choice for the #1 game I played in 2021 near effortless. First, let me clear something up. Portions of this game have featured heavily on this channel, namely Gunfoot. It was on my top 10 minigames, we did an entire video on it, played it on Birthday Special, and in my regular life I've spent some hours just playing this minigame with friends. I've also played this game's first level once, and the first music level a few times. Outside of that, I never touched the entire rest of this game. The reason for that is pretty basic. I played all of Rayman Origins for the first time with a full party of 4, and wanted to recreate that experience with Rayman Legends, playing the whole game with 5 players. It just never worked out. This year I finally brought myself to abandon that notion, just play 2-player. Would it have been better in 5-player? Probably. How much did that matter? Almost not at all. It's kind of incredible to me that neither Sackboy nor Hat in Time were the best platformers I played this year, but Legends takes each in one hand and drowns them in a pool of perfect platforming controls, relentless personality, the best physics engine ever seen in a 2D platformer, creative levels I never would have thought of that makes me so glad video game companies have people like Michel Ansel in them. The only competition this high a bar of level design in the entire video game industry is naturally Rayman Origins and Super Mario Galaxy. I have played well over 1,000 video games in my life, and there is a serious chance that Rayman Legends has the best level design of them all. To make this point extraordinarily clear, the game has an entire world that is one giant underwater stealth section, the two things all platformers should avoid like a bad case of coconut cake. But it's the best stealth section of any video game I've played, and I've played Metal Gear Solid 3. It's the best water section of any video game I've played, and I've played Super Mario Odyssey. It gets so brilliant with the level design, you get a stupid grin on your face just from appreciating the competence of the game designers. Never mind the buckets of extra charm like how Glowbox collapses into mush when he ducks, or Haynes from ledges with his teeth. The TCs are the best collectibles of any platforming collectathon out there, or at least handled the best. The game actively trains you into looking for secret areas and telltale signs of when, how, when, where to explore. And even though one player gets completely removed from the game to play as Murphy in 1 or 2 levels per world, those levels don't suck at all. In fact, I ended up looking forward to them immensely because playing as Murphy is really fun. One Murphy level in the late game might just be the best level in the entire game. Speaking of Murphy, if you can, get this on the Wii U. I have absolutely no idea how Murphy could ever work on any other console. And then you also get a great loading screen where you can beat each other up while waiting for the level to load. It's the Wii U's best graphical outing, probably the best game on the system. Its biggest flaw is length. It'll take you only around 10 hours to beat the main levels, but the weekly challenges that are still being updated, massive amount of rooms needed to unlock more characters to play as, bonus worlds of extra hard music levels. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention music levels. They will fight with Wheatley for the title of my favorite thing in existence. And the game just casually having what is practically the entire game of Rayman Origins in it as a bonus ensures you'll have a million reasons to keep playing long after the credits roll. Is it better than Rayman Origins? Yeah, probably. Is it my favorite game of all time? You know, I'll get back to you on that. I'm LittleZbot, and I highly doubt 2022 will give me anything close to